Hello, good people, and welcome back to my little blog. Haven't done one of these since the Rugby World Cup in 2019, and it's definitely appropriate to get one in here ahead of this amazing series that we have ahead of us, the British and Irish Lions visiting our shores. So just a bit of a housekeeping to begin with. Obviously, as you can see, I am wearing a British and Irish Lions top from the '09 series. But don't panic, rest assured, everything's under control here, and you can see what I've got on my heart here. So yeah, no problems there, just trying to keep myself warm. So what I'm going to be doing, plan of action is, we're looking at potentially a 5-part trilogy here. It's a personal joke, bit of a stupid one. But yeah, anyway, my original idea was that I would do one of these, 3 of these in total. One before each of the tests. So yeah, what I've done is I've made a little list here, ultra basic. You wouldn't be able to see that really. Not showing it very well because I'm trying to hold my phone up at the same time. This is done by one person only. But yeah, I've got my 5 points and my reasons why I believe that the Springboks are going to win this series against the Lions. Once again, I'm probably going against the flow, against the gradient here, because the vast majority of people, I would say, are backing the Lions to win this series for obvious reasons, based on the fact that we haven't played a test match since the Rugby World Cup final, November 2019, and we only have 2 warm-up games against Georgia, which is hardly the most challenging of opposition. Nevertheless, I've got my reasons, and I'm gonna head straight into them. So the first reason why I believe that ultimately we are going to win the series is, and with regards to the virus, so with regards to COVID. Basically, the thing about COVID is it's obviously a lot more far-reaching, from a sporting point of view at least, a lot more far-reaching than just what happens on the field, right? So being a touring group, I think it's going to have a huge impact on the Lions. Not to say that it won't have an impact on our guys, of course it will, but we will. I mean, although we'll also be in a bubble, our guys will be in a bubble. Like there's still something to be said for the home comforts that they will have, in the sense that they're in their home country. Whereas the Lions players are going to be on a fairly long tour. I can't remember how long it is in totality, but it's a good 5 weeks odd, and I think it's going to be really hard on them. Like the limitations, all the protocols are going to be obviously put in place to protect them, which are necessary, of course, but it's not really that conducive to a touring party. I mean, you could say that they could bind closer together as a result of it, but I think it's going to get niggly for them, to be perfectly honest. And I think it's going to be more of a hindrance than a benefit, in my opinion. Then the second part of that COVID factor is obviously the stadiums. So yeah, I mean, let's be realistic. We're going to have empty stadiums. I mean, we're holding on to a thread if we think that they're going to allow people in, particularly with what's going on with the infection rate at the moment and stuff. And I mean, the Lions arrive. They're probably on a flight today, I reckon. I mean, they're playing against the Emirates Lions Saturday week. So I mean, it's just in front of us. So I think the empty stadiums. Sorry, I'm deviating a little bit. The empty stadiums are going to play quite a big role, obviously, for both sides. But I think particularly for the Lions, as we all know, and we saw in '09, I mean, it was just incredible how they filled those stadiums up, particularly Durban in that first test at Kings Park. It was just this absolute sea of red, and that's the Lions brand for you. That's the following that they have, and they draw a lot of energy out of that. Like it's really huge for them, and I think they're going to really struggle not having supporters there, and it's going to be we'll struggle with it too, but I think it's going to be more of a factor for them. It's going to disadvantage them more than it's going to disadvantage us, in my opinion. The second point that I have is around physicality and discipline. So, look, I mean, both sides are going to be very physical. The Lions are going to have a powerful pack. I mean, it's obvious. They've got an incredible amount of talent to pick from, crazy depth. Obviously, you're talking about 4 countries, so it's self-explanatory. And the Six Nations has been ultra competitive over the last 2 years, and we haven't played a test in that period of time. So, you're looking at battle-hardened guys, and they're gonna come to the party physically in a big way. Yet, in saying that, I do believe that we are still going to have the physical edge over them. Just based on, I mean, I know you could say this is a legacy comment because we haven't played for such a period of time, but I don't think we're going to lose as much as people think we're going to lose in terms of the time away from the game. I think there's a real mentality in with regards to our group of players, and particularly our forward pack, and it's a real attitude thing at the end of the day. And I think physically, the kind of depth we have in our pack, how the guys are going to just pull together and bond. There's just such great memories, such great energy in that environment. We are world champions, and no one's going to forget that at any point in time. And we're going to draw a lot of energy off that. And the guys are going to raise their game, and the forwards are going to be critical there. Like, they're going to have to really step up, because it's going to be won and lost there, like pretty much all rugby games are, and in particular these really big series. I'm talking with regards to physicality. I think where I think it's going to be a bit of a hindrance potentially for the Lions is I think the Lions are potentially going to place too much of an emphasis. They're going to overemphasize in that area. And I suspect, I could be wrong about this, obviously, easily could be wrong, but I suspect that by trying to overcompensate, they could create issues for themselves, where they really focus a little bit too much on the physical aspects and trying to match us and basically dominate us up front, which it's not going to happen in my book. And I think it might boil over for them a little bit on the discipline side. I think they're going to be so emotional and so fueled that it could lend itself to a few issues around their discipline. And if they don't channel that aggression in the right way, and they're trying so hard to dominate us physically, it could be misdirected a bit, and it could result in cards and sort of demeanors, like discipline, misdemeanors, not demeanors, misdemeanors. So I see that playing a role in the series as well. The third point that I have, where are we now? We're kind of hovering on 7 minutes, so let me move it on a bit. The third point that I have is with regards to defensive attitude and mindset. So, it's a given that both defenses are going to be super well organized. There's going to be a massive amount of analysis that's going to be done. It's such a specialized game nowadays. Both sides have, defensive specialist coaches. Our defense specialist coach happens to be our head coach now, or at least that's his title. It's going to be very, very competitive there. There's going to be a huge battle for the gain line. But I believe that we're going to have an edge, and I'm talking about fine lines here. As I mentioned, both teams are going to be excellent in this regard. I've got no doubt about it. And space is going to be hard to find with regards to these defenses. But I think ultimately our defense has a bit of superiority, just a little bit of an edge over them. And I'll talk about this more with regards to an attitude. And I know it's a long time ago, but like the starting lineup realistically for the first test match for the Springboks is going to be pretty similar to like the starting lineup that took on England in the World Cup final. You might be looking at, 3 to 4 changes max. That's at the most, injury dependent, obviously. And that there's going to be an energy there. There's going to be a bond, as I've been speaking about, and that's going to come out in the moments when we are under pressure. That's what I think, from a defensive point of view, like that belief that the guys have in one another, in terms of not leaking tries. And we went through that 2019 World Cup. I don't remember exactly how many tries we conceded in the end, but it was it was like ridiculously small. I think I could be wrong. I think we might have conceded 4 tries in the whole tournament, 3 or 4 tries. It's just absurd. It was a bit more than that because we conceded 2 to the All Blacks. But yeah, it was about 4 or 5 tries. Anyway, so I reckon, defensive attitude and just our mindset, I think we're going to have a little bit of an edge over the Lions there. I think the Lions they'll be well structured and stuff, but they're not going to have that. They're not going to have that coherence that we will have in our team, just by virtue of the fact that we are the Springboks, and this is a team made up of several countries. I think that's going to count in the end. The fourth point that I have is regarding Gats. It's Gats and Connor and bigger. Okay, and the point that I'm making here is, Warren Gatland is a phenomenal coach. He's really he's got an amazing track record. Not of late, this is part of my point, but historically, he's obviously achieved a lot in the game, and it's well documented. But more recently, I think, he's certainly in the twilight of his career, and I'm not sure, I don't know who would have been the right pick in my opinion, so I know I'm not offering a solution here, in terms of the head coach, but I don't believe Gatland is the right guy for the job at this point. And I say this based on, I know it's a different game, different country, well, same game, but different country, the games played very differently there, but, his time with the Chiefs was a shocker, absolute shocker. He didn't win one game, he didn't win one solitary game with the Chiefs when he was over there. And that's going to impact his confidence as a coach. And I just feel that like after that 2019 World Cup, it was that probably should have been his last really big gig as a coach. And I think there would have been better people to come in as the head coach here. For the Lions. So I think that's going to be a role. I think we're going to have a coaching edge over them from a head coach perspective between Rassie and Jacques. I think we've got an awesome combination there with regards to our senior coaches. And then the second person that I mentioned there is Connor. So obviously Connor Murray. And it's ironic this, because my point was going to actually be, when I prepared this before, it was before the Lions game against Japan, and it was going to be about Alan Wynne-Jones. And ironically, I'm making a similar kind of point with regards to Connor Murray as well. So now Alan Wynne-Jones is obviously, we find out now that he's out of the whole tour, which is a huge, this has massive implications in terms of this tour. Like Alan Wynne-Jones he's such a charismatic, talismanic leader. In terms of geeing up the guys, he would have been huge for the Lions in that regard. It's debatable whether he's the best starting lock on form, but certainly he brings a lot of physicality, and they would have been looking for that, from him. And they're gonna lose that. It doesn't matter who comes in his place, in my opinion. So from a leadership point of view, it's massive, and they've appointed Connor Murray as the captain, which I find a little bit odd. Frankly speaking, I know I'm an ex-forward myself, and I know there's no wrong with having background players. You've had plenty of countries that have been very successful with background players, but generally speaking, I believe a forward needs to be the captain of a side, and I don't agree with Connor Murray being made captain of the squad. So I think that's a little bit of a mistake from the Lions side, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Obviously, they will have a forwards captain, but it's a bit different, and I don't know who they're going to go for in terms of the most senior guy in the forward pack. They're probably not sure who that person is, which is why they've gone for the default idea of Connor Murray being very experienced as the captain. And then the last one is Dan Biggar. So, Dan Biggar's known to be a little bit of a love child of Warren Gatlin's, similar to Alan Wynne-Jones, I suppose. But obviously, great player, Dan Biggar, pretty solid, reliable, good goal kicker, which is obviously huge. We all know that the series is going to be decided on fine lines. It's going to be small margins. It's very unlikely you're going to have high scoring games. It's the usual kind of thing. It's similar to a World Cup, I guess. Probably going to be quite cagey. But Dan Biggar, I think that, and our basis on one moment, and you can take this for what it's worth. You can. By all means, you could say that it doesn't make any sense, and I'm reading too much into this because it's only one isolated moment. But I think these things play a role psychologically. I really believe this. And the moment I'm referring to is in the World Cup semi-final, when Davian Dialendi just absolutely mowed Dan Biggar down, basically. On not defensively so much, but when he was on attack, he just ran straight through him. You're welcome to go and watch the highlights of that try, but. It was a little bit like an adult playing against a boy, and Dan Biggar just looked absolutely clueless, and he looked like he didn't really know what to do with Dialendi. He didn't know how to take him down, and I think defensively Dan Biggar's known not to be the strongest 10 in that channel, and the Boks are going to definitely target that channel with some big ball carriers running through there. And the idea with the Lions will obviously be to offer as much protection as possible to Dan Biggar in that channel. But I don't know whether they're going to manage to do that completely. And I think there will be times when he could be isolated defensively. And I'm particularly Dialendi because of how we use him. I'm assuming he's going to start and he'll be fit and all the rest of it after his burns, which I think should be fine. I think that's going to play a role. And I just think there are going to be these little moments, and that's what I'm looking for. Maybe I'm searching a bit as a Boks fan, but that's what I reckon. So I think that could be play a role. That's my little tip there. And then the last point is the 8-9-10. Okay, and this is fairly obvious that in these huge test matches and big series like this, your 8, your 9, and your 10 are such pivotal positions. You could probably throw 2 in there as well. But I think particularly this 8, 9, 10 axis is massive. And when I look at the British and Irish Lions and the Springboks across those 3 positions, granted, I know you've got to take this with a pinch of salt because the guys have had limited game time. So, I'm just trying to, put that to one side. But I believe, assuming that we have a fully fit Andre Pollard starting the first test match, obviously we're expecting Faf de Klerk will play, and then fingers crossed on Dwayne Vermeulen, and that is a huge concern. Hoping that by hook or by crook they find a way to get him fit. Whatever, if he's on basically on a crutch. He needs to start that first test. He's just such a massive player for the Springboks. He is irreplaceable. I mean, that's my opinion. Like, he just brings so much to the party, and he's such an important guy for us. So hoping that he starts, on the assumption that all three of them are somehow able to start, even with Andre Pollard not having that much game time, prior to the series. I still believe he's a big match player. I think he will rise to the occasion. He's good enough, even without having had so much game time, to do it. I think that we are better across those three positions than the British and Irish Lions are, irrespective of who they pick. So it doesn't matter. Like, I still believe we're better. And even if we don't have Dwayne, I think that, that levels it out more. But I would say we potentially still have a slight edge across those three positions, because that's how highly I rate Faf de Klerk personally. I think he's phenomenal in terms of his energy on the field and just what he brings to the team. That Jack Russell mentality, and then obviously, at fly, I mean, Pollard does have to start, because if you bring a guy like Elton in, okay, then it changes quite a bit. As much as I like Elton, I wouldn't feel comfortable with him starting against the British and Irish Lions. So don't know if that's the greatest video, but these are my views on this upcoming series. Like, it's super exciting that we are going to have a series, like, particularly with what's going on with all these infections, the COVID stuff and all the rest of it. I mean, it felt a little bit touch and go, but I'm thinking by now, like, it's basically too late for them to pull the plug. I mean, the guy's probably on a flight pretty much. So let's assume that this thing is actually going ahead. And I think it's going to be super exciting, guys. And enjoy the series, enjoy that first test match. When is it? 21 July, I think it is. So we're a couple of weeks away. There's a few warm-up games leading up to that first test. Emirates Lions, Sharks, Stormers, and SAA. So the last point that I wanted to make was that I feel that what's going to count a little bit against the Lions is I'm predicting that they're going to have a relatively easy ride against our provincial sides. And I think that's not going to be good for them, because they're not going to learn much about themselves if they walk games. They won't walk all of those games, but I don't see them being taken very close in any of them. And again, I could be super wrong here. The Bulls could go and beat them. I mean, it happened the last time, or at least it happened in the 97 tour. But I think they're going to be a little bit comfortable in those games, and I think that's going to be a problem for them come first test, because they're not going to be tested enough leading up to that first test match, and you need to be asked the hard questions leading up to a test match. That's really important. I wouldn't read anything into that game against Japan yesterday. Japan were just poor. They were disappointing. They were off the pace, and physically they just couldn't match up at all with the Lions. So you could see they were getting a lot of ball, but they weren't getting gain line. Their carriers were just. They weren't getting across that advantage line, and if you can't achieve that, then you can forget about it. Basically, you have to go forward. It's pretty simple. Guys, everyone, listen, have an awesome time. Be safe, obviously, with the virus. Take the precautions. I wish you all well. I hope everyone's safe and happy and all good. The plan is that I will check in with another video after the first test, and let's see what happens there. It's going to be really important that we get a win in that first test. It's a little bit frustrating that the game's been played at sea level in Cape Town, and who knows, it could even be raining. It's not the smartest call. We should have been playing all three tests on the Highveld, but we've got test 2 and test 3 at JSC, Johannesburg Soccer City. So that's good. And the first test is going to be critical. Like, we're going to need to get a win in that first test match. For the momentum, it's so huge. I mean, like, you think back to that 2009 tour, it was massive the way we won that first test. Let's hope that we can get a win in that first test match and get the series off to the start that we need as South African rugby fans. And come on, the Bokke! Mwah! Lots of love, everyone. Take it easy. Bye bye.